Hello, dear subscribers and guests of the channel Myths and Legends. Today we are embarking on an exciting journey through a mythology distinctly different from that of the Norse, Celts, and other European peoples. Let us step into the world of ancient Egypt, where the afterlife held colossal significance and profoundly influenced the entire culture and daily life. Pharaohs, even in their lifetimes, prepared for their meeting with eternity, and this process was not merely a tribute to tradition but part of a deeply rooted belief. Helping them in the preparation for the afterlife was none other than a divine protector responsible for all aspects of the transition to another world. Embalming, mummification, and the conducting of complex burial rites, he presided over these sacred rituals. Allow me to introduce you to the master of the afterlife, Anubis, one of the most revered deities of the ancient Egyptian pantheon. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not the end, but merely the beginning of a new, more important stage of existence. Over millennia, the cult of the afterlife became an integral part of this great civilization. However, contrary to stereotypes, the Egyptians did not spend their lives simply awaiting death. They did not seek to hasten their escape from earthly concerns, but rather viewed this transition as a natural continuation of their life journey, one they were to prepare for properly. The ancient Egyptians believed that death in our world was only the beginning of a new life in the realm of the dead. In this afterlife, Anubis held a special place, one of the most revered gods. With the head of a jackal and a human body, he embodied the passage from the world of the living to the world of spirits. Anubis was not only one of the oldest but also one of the most popular deities in ancient Egypt. People believed that he wielded powerful authority over their physical and spiritual state at the moment of death. He was often depicted with black skin, an unusual choice since this color is not typical for either dogs or jackals. However, the choice of black was symbolic and reflected Anubis's role in rituals. Black was associated with the Nile soil, fertility, and funerary rites, especially those related to the burial of pharaohs. He became a symbol of rebirth and a new beginning awaiting the soul after death. Anubis was considered the protector and creator of these complex rituals. Besides black, other colors were often used in depictions of Anubis. White, the color of the burial wrappings in which mummies were wrapped, symbolized purity and protection in the mummification process. Green, traditionally associated with life and rebirth, emphasized his connection with the cycle of death and new life. Anubis, one of Egypt's oldest and most revered deities, was often depicted with symbolic items emphasizing his role in funerary rites. He usually held a staff with a carved jackal's head or a scepter wrapped in a dog's skin, reflecting his close connection to the world of the dead and ritual traditions. Temples dedicated to Anubis always kept live dogs or jackals, considered sacred animals. After their death, the bodies of these animals were carefully mummified and continued to remain in the temple as part of the sacred relic. In the era of the Old Kingdom, Anubis was the patron of necropolises and cemeteries, protecting the deceased and overseeing burial rituals. He was also considered the guardian of poisons and medicines, playing an important role in the rites of embalming and mummification. His figure was so significant that, in the early period of Egyptian civilization, he held a central place in the pantheon of deities, which is not surprising given his close connection with the afterlife. The Egyptian civilization lasted thousands of years, and during that time, Anubis performed various functions, adapting to changing eras. However, his enduring link to the underworld remained constant. In early eras, he was depicted not only with the head of a jackal, but also with the body of this animal, symbolizing his deep connection to the realms of death and rebirth. In ancient Egypt, jackals were associated with cemeteries for a practical reason. The dead were often buried in shallow graves, and predators frequently dug them up, consuming the dead flesh. To protect the graves from these animals, priests created the image of a divine jackal. According to myths, this jackal, who became Anubis, was not only a symbol of death but also a protector of the buried, shielding them from the destructive actions of their earthly counterparts. During the Old Kingdom, Anubis played a key role in preserving tombs and safeguarding the dead, making him one of the most important gods associated with the afterlife. Over time, his functions expanded. Anubis not only guarded the deceased but also became a guide for souls into the underworld, helping them overcome the challenges of transitioning from the world of the living to the world of the dead. This led to changes in his portrayal. He was given a human body, although his jackal head remained unchanged, symbolizing his connection to the otherworldly. In later periods, Anubis was so important that he was considered the ruler of the underworld. However, starting from the Middle Kingdom, his place was gradually taken by Osiris, who became the chief god of the dead and the ruler of the afterlife. Nevertheless, Anubis continued to be an important figure, maintaining his role in rituals and ceremonies related to mummification and guiding the deceased to the other world. Anubis, despite his place among the deities being overtaken by Osiris, continued to play an essential role in funerary rituals. Osiris became the supreme ruler of the realm of the dead, but it was Anubis who accompanied the souls of the deceased on their journey, literally leading them by hand to Osiris's judgment. This was one of his primary missions, to ferry souls to the afterlife. However, Anubis was not just a guide. His duties were far broader, which allows us to call him a multifaceted deity. Beyond greeting and escorting souls, he oversaw the mummification and embalming of bodies, ensuring that the bodies of the deceased were preserved for eternal life in the afterworld. But one of his most important and symbolic roles was that of the keeper of the scales. It was Anubis who was responsible for determining on the scales of fate whether the soul of the deceased was worthy of eternal life. In the Book of the Dead, the judgment of Osiris is described, where the souls of the deceased were weighed. Anubis monitored this process, checking to see if the heart of the deceased would outweigh the feather of Maat, the symbol of truth and justice. In this way, he was the one who determined the soul's future destiny, whether it would enter eternal life or be consigned to oblivion. In the judgment of the soul of the deceased, Anubis and Thoth, the god of wisdom, knowledge, and writing, played key roles. They were responsible for weighing the heart of the deceased on the sacred scales. On one side was placed the heart, symbolizing the person's conscience, and on the other, the feather of truth, embodying the goddess Maat. The feather represented righteousness and truth. If the deceased had lived honestly and justly, the heart would weigh less than or equal to the feather. In this case, Anubis would guide the soul to Osiris, who would determine the fate of the righteous one. They would be welcomed into the fields of paradise, a place of eternal life and prosperity, where the soul could dwell in peace and harmony. However, if the heart outweighed the feather, it indicated that the person had lived unrighteously. In this case, their soul became the prey of a monster named Maat, who stood by the scales. Maat was a terrifying creature with the body of a lion and the head of a crocodile, devouring sinful souls and depriving them of any chance at eternal life. This symbolic ritual emphasized the importance of righteousness and honesty in the life of every Egyptian, as one's fate in the afterlife depended on the purity of the heart. Now, let us explore the origins of the mysterious Anubis and who his parents were, according to ancient Egyptian myths. The question of Anubis's parentage puzzled not only the ancient Egyptians but also modern scholars, as various sources offered different versions. However, among these legends and myths, we find the most plausible explanation in the works of the ancient Greek philosopher Plutarch, who was a connoisseur of Egyptian mythology and cultural traditions. Plutarch asserts that Anubis was the son of Nephthys and Osiris. This union seems unusual, as Nephthys was the wife of Set, Osiris's brother, and Osiris himself was married to his sister, Isis. But as the myth goes, Nephthys, enamored of Osiris, sought to win his attention through cunning. She took on the appearance of Isis and seduced him, and from this encounter, Anubis was born. Such plot twists were not uncommon in Egyptian mythology, where gods often engaged in complex and tangled relationships. Despite this, Anubis was neither cast out nor rejected. He became an important figure in the pantheon of gods, occupying a unique position as the protector of the dead and the guide of souls into the afterlife. Thus, the origins of Anubis are shrouded in mystery and myth, but thanks to Plutarch, we can presume that his parents were Osiris and Nephthys, adding even more drama to the already intricate relationships of the Egyptian gods. Fearing her husband Set's revenge for her infidelity, Nephthys was forced to abandon her newborn son. She hid the baby among the reeds along the banks of the Nile. Fortunately, the goddess Isis, Osiris's wife, found the baby and decided to raise him as her own. Thus, in effect, Isis became Anubis's adoptive mother. Anubis was not alone. He was married to the goddess Anput, who was depicted with the body of a woman and the head of a jackal, emphasizing their shared connection with the afterlife. This couple had a daughter named Kibeshet, the goddess of embalming and fresh, cool water. This family played an important role in Egyptian mythology, especially in rituals related to mummification and funerary ceremonies. To summarize, Anubis was one of the oldest gods of ancient Egypt, who ruled the realm of the dead until his functions were transferred to Osiris during the Middle Kingdom. Nevertheless, he remained a significant figure, known as the inventor and god of mummification and embalming, the guide of deceased souls, and the guardian of their path to the afterlife. Anubis was not just a god of death but also the protector of the underworld, which the Egyptians called duat. Due to his profound knowledge of anatomy and his skill in embalming, Anubis also became the patron of anesthesiology and medical knowledge. Priests performing mummification rituals wore jackal masks, embodying Anubis himself. His cult was widespread throughout Egypt, with the main center of worship in the city of Sinopolis, which translates from Egyptian as City of Dogs. Many wonder, is Anubis a good or evil god? But it is essential to understand that he cannot be judged in such categories. Anubis is a just judge, guided by balance and truth rather than emotion. He upholds the law of the afterlife and determines the soul's fate based on its merits. On this note, I conclude our story today. I hope I managed to share some interesting facts and that you found it engaging. If you are new to our channel Myths and Legends and want to stay updated on new episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to receive notifications about new videos. Leave your feedback and suggestions in the comments. Your opinion is important to us. See you soon on the channel. Take care and live with integrity. Goodbye.